Today, something is happening that just a few years ago was spoken of only as a distant future. And while it once seemed that the humanoid robot race was exclusively a battle between Tesla and Chinese giants like Unitree, a new and extremely dangerous player is now entering the game, one that knows how to scale technologies better than anyone else in the world, one that has already transformed entire industries from smartphones to chips and consumer electronics. And that player is Samsung. According to insiders and industry analysts, Samsung is preparing to present its first universal humanoid robot as early as this year. And if this really happens, it could become a turning point for the entire industry, because Samsung is not just entering the robotics market, it intends to rewrite it. Unlike most companies today that create humanoids either for factories or for limited scenarios, Samsung is betting on a completely different concept. A universal robot, a robot that can work in the home, assist humans, interact with devices, learn, adapt, and become part of everyday life. And this is exactly what makes its approach so dangerous for competitors. If you look closely at how Samsung has entered other markets, it becomes clear that it almost never creates just a product. It builds an ecosystem, and in the case of humanoid robots, the situation will likely be the same. Imagine a device that does not just execute commands but is integrated with all the technology in your home, with the refrigerator, the TV, the smart home system, the smartphone, the car. A robot that understands your habits, manages your space, and effectively becomes the center of your digital life. And this is where things get really interesting, because Samsung is one of the few companies in the world that already has everything needed to implement such a concept. Its own processors, displays, batteries, sensors, and experience producing millions of devices every year, which means that if its robot proves successful, it will be able to scale it faster than anyone else. But what might this robot actually look like? If you combine all the leaks, patents, and current developments from Samsung, a very interesting picture emerges. It will not simply be a copy of a human like some competitors are pursuing. Most likely, Samsung will take the path of minimalism and functionality. A clean, concise design, possibly a smooth body without unnecessary details, a display instead of a face or minimalistic light indicators, with the emphasis not on human likeness, but on ease of interaction. Its height will likely be in the range of 140 to 170 centimeters, which is optimal for working in a home environment, allowing it to reach shelves and interact with household appliances without appearing intimidating. Its movements will be smooth, safe, and adapted to being around people, and most importantly, its intelligence. Samsung is actively investing in artificial intelligence, and its robot will most likely be built around so-called agent-based AI, meaning it will not just execute commands but understand tasks and make decisions. For example, you would not tell it bring me water, you would say I am hot, and it would understand on its own that it needs to bring a cold drink or turn on the air conditioning. And here, Samsung may make its strongest move: integration. Unlike Tesla Optimus, which is being built around autonomy and universality outside of an ecosystem, Samsung can connect its robot to all of its devices. So imagine the robot knowing that you are running out of groceries because the refrigerator has already sent a signal. It forms an order, suggests options, and interacts with delivery services on its own. This is no longer just a robot, it is a life management hub. But can Samsung challenge the current leaders? To understand this, you need to look at the market. Today, there are three main directions. The first is the United States with Tesla and its Optimus. The second is China, where companies like Unitree, UB and others are already actively bringing robots to market. And the third is the potential entry of Samsung. Tesla is betting on universality and scale, with the goal of creating a robot that is cheap and massively adopted, while China is betting on speed and manufacturing, with its robots already appearing in factories, logistics, and construction. But Samsung may play a completely different game. They could become the first to truly enter the home, and this is the key point, because the home robot market is potentially worth trillions of dollars, not tens of thousands of units like in factories, but hundreds of millions. And if Samsung manages to create a robot that is genuinely useful in everyday life, it could transform the entire industry. However, there are also risks. because creating a universal home robot is far more difficult than an industrial one. The home is a chaotic environment with different objects, different scenarios, and constant change, and a robot must be safe, reliable, and intelligent enough not to make mistakes, which raises the question of whether AI today is ready for that level. Nevertheless, Samsung appears to believe that it is, and if it actually presents its robot this year, it will send a signal to the entire industry that the race has entered a new level, that robots are no longer just about factories, but are becoming part of everyday life. And the most interesting part will come next, because if Samsung enters the market, other companies will not be able to stay on the sidelines. Apple is already, according to rumors, working on its own robotic devices. Google is actively investing in AI and robotics, and Chinese companies will accelerate even further. A real race will begin, a race to create the perfect humanoid assistant first, a race for a new market, a race that could change the life of every person. And if Samsung truly reveals what insiders are currently talking about, we may find ourselves at a point where the future becomes the present, not in 10 years, not in 5 years, but already now, because for the first time in history, several technological giants have simultaneously approached the creation of humanoid robots, and each of them wants to be first. But Samsung has one advantage. It knows how to turn technology into a mass product, and if it succeeds, this will not be just another robot. It will be the beginning of a new era. But there is another aspect that almost no one talks about, and it may become the decisive factor in this race. It is price. Historically, Samsung has always won where complex technology needed to be made mass market. Smartphones, televisions, home appliances. They did not just create a product, they reduced its cost to a level accessible to millions of people. And if Samsung applies this same strategy to humanoid robots, the market could explode. Imagine if their first robot costs not $30,000 to $40,000, as expected from competitors, but around $10,000 to $15,000, or even lower with mass production. This immediately changes the rules of the game, because the robot stops being an experiment or a luxury toy and becomes a household device, just like a TV or a washing machine. And this is exactly where Samsung can deliver its strongest blow to Tesla and Chinese manufacturers, because it already has global logistics, factories, suppliers, and sales channels, and it knows how to produce millions of devices per year, which means that if it can adapt this model to robots, no one will be able to compete with it at scale. But it is not just about price. There is another factor: trust. People are willing to place Samsung devices in their homes. They trust the brand, and this is critical because letting a humanoid robot into your home is an entirely different level of trust. It is a device that moves, interacts with objects, and exists nearby with you and your family. And if this market really begins to grow, the companies that win will be those that people already trust.